Hi, I'm Jordan Lees. I'm also late. Coming along from Team 102. This is my 10th season at FRC. Every year that I was on the team, I did some form of scouting app, and they couldn't get rid of me after I went to college.
Okay.
So let's quickly talk about what is Scoutradioz. So Scoutradioz is a free web app that anybody on any team, that's FRC at least right now, can load on their phone or a laptop, and it's available at Scoutradioz.com. Every organization that uses the app gets their own instance, so data is siloed between them, but also all the data that's collected, except for some free text forms, are publicly available. Scoutradioz is all in one, fully featured. It is the only, it's like the go-to place for scouting. It's all included in the app. And you can customize your form, you can customize your detailed analytics. It's pretty good.
Okay, so how do we get to this point? When I first started being a mentor instead of a parent with a team, that's when we transitioned from the old way of writing the scouting application for Team 102, the gearheads. And initially it was written as a single server app, which was, it worked pretty well, but when more than, say, 12 or so students got into it, it would keel over. It was running on a single server in some, colo someplace. So we moved it to Amazon Web Services, and oh my God, it was so fast and so cheap. You're running these things in Lambda functions and such. And we realized, this is so fast, it's so inexpensive, so much capacity. We could tweak the database a bit, open this up to other teams, so it's not just 102 using it, but any team could use it and customize it and do all these things. So starting in 2022, we opened it up. We had 3 teams initially, brave souls, working with us through the bugs and kind of the issues and such. But they really loved it. The word of mouth got out. A bunch more teams joined the off season. In 2023, it really took off. So we officially came out of early access at the end of 2023. Here's some of the quotes and things from folks, and these are mostly names I got from our Discord. So technician, I don't really know their name, but that's who they were on the Discord. Various comments and such. So today we have over 210 teams registering the application, spanning 9 countries and 10 time zones. And this is sort of like an extra thing that's good about Scoutradioz in the sense that we want it to be available in the user's own languages. FIRST has events in Turkey and Israel and Mexico and such. And so they publish a lot of materials in a whole bunch of languages. So we wanted the app to be translated in those languages. And then we've opened it up to the community. They're adding even more languages like Vietnamese and Norwegian and such. I should do a quick demo of the language capabilities. Tab over to here. So when you go to Scoutradioz.com, you look at this little globe in the upper right here. And so these are some of the languages we have today. They say switch is Chinese, and then everything's in Chinese, simplified Chinese. This is mostly machine translated, so we could use some folks who know Chinese to help us tweak these. If I switch it to say Hebrew, I'm not sure which of these is Hebrew, so we're going to switch back to English. So Hebrew is cool because it's right to left. Now the application is reversed, so the menu's over here. And we've had a number of Israeli teams help us with the translation, so these are pretty good. I think some of those teams are here at the event this week helping to do, they're going to be doing scouting and Scoutradioz. Back to the presentation. Okay, so I'm not going to redo Karthik's presentation. If you guys were able to get into that or watched it, if you haven't watched it, I highly recommend it. But why do we scout?
Strategies.
Yeah, effective first strategies. I mean, basically, we scout because strategy can tip the scales in a close match. And to do good strategy, you need to have data to feed the strategy and understand things. And again, not just for alliance selection. The drive team before each qualifying match wants to know, hey, the people we're partnered up with, what are they good at? What are they bad at? Or our opponents, what are they good at? What are they bad at? Do we want to defend? Do we want to focus on a certain aspect? If you are pretty confident you're not going to win, maybe go for the ranking points, or just show off, for a pick list later. I mean, yesterday, Team 195, the Cyber Knights, did a really great presentation on, scouting beyond just the pick list, and they include talking about their application. That they're a big team. They made this fully featured, highly functional scouting app, and this is, that's kind of the the business point of Scoutradioz, a smaller or mid-sized team, or a team that doesn't have somebody passionate about application development, how do they compete with that? So we're trying to provide similar capabilities in this platform for all teams. So let's get into what Scoutradioz has to offer.
Yep. So this is one of the main features of Scoutradioz. So a lot of our reports have heat maps. This is the metrics for all teams page. We have columns that are, some of them on the right are just checkboxes from the form, but a lot of the ones on the left are derived metrics. We've got a nice heat map, it's a sortable table, and all of the teams and all of the columns that you selected are visible. I'm going to get a quick live demo.
Yeah, so I just want to mention real quick, so when we say averages there, it's important to note that we use an exponential moving average. So really, we're going to rename that in the off-season to trending, because it reflects not just the average behavior of the teams over the whole competition, but what have they done lately? Are they trending up? Are they trending down? So that's really important, particularly for pick lists. You can find a lot of sleeper picks. Teams that had some issues early on but have come out strong. They get overlooked. And if you're a lower seed, those are great picks. So just a real quick kind of show. So this data, by the way, is from we took a database snapshot from the middle of the first Mid-Atlantic Championship. So this is Saturday morning. So one of the things we've noticed, you have the ranks, but if you sort by, say, total notes, so you click on the column page, you can sort in that column. There's a team, there are teams that are doing very poorly in the rankings, but are very strong in the capabilities. Likewise, if you look at total auto points, that's another highly predictive metric of success. The top team for the number of points in auto was ranked 31st out of 60. Back. Oh. Come on. There we go.
Over here's a demonstration of the customizability of Scoutradioz. The forms are completely modular. They're just a list of labels, checkboxes, text boxes, counters, and the data on the left is what determines what's on the right. So teams specify their own JSON, which for those of you who are not aware, it's like a data storage format that's designed to be both human readable and machine readable. And it takes that and it generates these. And from the results on what the scouters put, you can create metrics, and the metrics that we've seen and some more metrics that we'll see in the next slides.
And just to reemphasize that, every team gets to make the form look like exactly what they want to. So it's not set. It's not something set that everybody has to use, out of the box.
And again, with customizability. So, if you want your own fully custom form, you can make it. That's what we call the low-code option. But if you don't want to write any code and you're comfortable with the form that another team puts out, you can do that. We share our JSON schema. We had a couple other teams from last season.
2252 also shared.
2252 actually finished theirs before ours, and a decent number of Scoutradioz users are using that. Share the JSON, copy it into your organization. You can change the wording if you like, and then you have it. And we have separate forms for pit scouting and match scouting. And you can also, as I mentioned earlier, you can customize which of those columns that are shown. So it's a little bit less cluttered.
Yeah, so a wall of numbers looks cool, but the drive team's like, okay, what is this? This doesn't tell me anything. What about our next match? So this is a view of the drive team dashboard. Because the drive team wants to know, hey, our lines, what are we good at? What are they bad at? All those sorts of metrics. I'll do a quick demo of that. So again, this is data from the middle of the competition. We're looking at Team Sabotage 1640.
Oh my lordy.
Excellent, thank you. So 1640 was up. They were partnered with Midnight, and 4285 might have been, was that Camelbox? Okay. I don't remember all the other team names, but the other teams on the right. So the app does a prediction based on the scouting data, and I can talk more about that in a bit. Besides the predictions, we do this radar or spider chart, and basically it normalizes the data of the two alliances to sort of give you a quick visual idea of which teams are good at which things, which teams are so you can kind of see visually. Yes, the red alliance here is probably going to do better. But if you want to dig into the numbers, we also have that in the heat map at the bottom. You can compare the actual individual nodes. Like the Blue Alliance could see that, hey, let's see, total teleop nodes, midnight is the strongest total teleop node. So if they want to have a fighting chance, maybe they defend midnight 1923 here.
Next, we'll talk about Team Intel. So there's a lot of screenshots here because it's a very big page. But one of the main reports that we have is, as I described, the Team Intel page. On the left, we have the robot photo. Those are taken during Big Sky. And we have links towards their upcoming matches and all of their data. And then we have just the Big Sky results. It's helpful to just see, like, hey, I see this team on the list. I don't remember what they do or what their drivetrain is. So
also, particularly early on, before there's a lot of data, pit scouting is really helpful for forming early qualifiers, the first 1 or 2 qualifiers.
Yes. Then the next one is just statistics. So this has more details than the all-team metrics. The metrics just have the trending and capabilities, or currently average and maximums. We also have variance, so we can see how consistent they are at those stats, and then also maximum and minimum. Those are also, Karthik was mentioning that it's quite helpful to see the minimum value of a given stat. And lastly, we have the results of matches. Here we have a lot of notes. So most forums have an other comments and notes section for the scouters to just say, hey, like, oh, this bot was really cool, or this bot was not great, explain why. We also have Super Scout notes at the top. And it's helpful to just see what your scouters have written of those bots.
Okay.
And here's a big one, alliance selection. It's true that scouting is more than just alliance selection, but alliance selection is still very important. So this alliance selection dashboard page has 2 main uses. One, the primary one, is for your representative when they're on the field. They load the alliance selection page, which with a pick list that we'll talk more about in a little bit. And they follow along with the alliance selection, and the chart on the bottom, once the team is no longer available, it takes grayed out. And so it can be much easier to quickly be like, okay, this is our top team that is remaining, I'll pick them. And secondly, for those who are in the stands, they can follow along, have discussions, stay engaged, instead of just watching or just being on the phone.
Right, you can think like, hey, why the heck did they pick that person? So, or like, oh, it's a great pick, I love that. Yeah, so I'll do a quick demo of that as well. Because that really pops when you see it in live. Go, just 1 second. Okay, so this is the rankings at the end of that event. So 1676. So when as you're following, let's say they pick 341, you highlight that. That goes here. And again, to Jordan's point, down here, if you sort by your pick list, you can see who's already been taken, who's grayed out, which picks are available. So 5895 is still available, but they get picked by 1640. Okay, well, we'll work on that.
Points for effort.
Yeah, so 5895. Now 2590 have to pick 1807, an alliance captain. So if you pick that, the app automatically moves everybody up. So for example, 103 now came up as an alliance captain. So as you're going through, who's left, who's the next best robot, that's going to be your pick. Hopefully that makes it easier. Hold that question till the end. All right, advance, I'm sorry. Hello, advance.
All right, now let's talk about how Scoutradioz is good for the scouters. It can be helpful to describe where we came from before 2018. So before 2018, we would rewrite the app every year, and it was a bit of a mess. Development was rushed. It was also often incomplete. It was a buggy mess. Not a very high emphasis on user experience, and we would have students just in their pits on their phones refusing to scout because scouting was a challenge. We had 2 laptops, 1 per alliance, and the students had to follow all 3 bots. And it was a mess, it was difficult, it was challenging.
Yeah, so how did we fix that? Basically made scouting fun. So first off, code reuse meant that the app year over year became higher quality and a lot more user-friendly. We reduced friction by making scouting easier. The scouts use their own phones, there's no hardware to purchase or use. And we had 1 scout per team instead of 1 scout per alliance. There's a schedule so they can see when their assignments are, when they have breaks. And generally we gave them a sense of personal responsibility because we can track who's making their assignments, who's getting them covered, who's missing them, and how well they do it.
And on the vein of ease of use, after your scouters log in, they'll get presented with the scouting dashboard as long as they have assignments. On the top, we'll see the pit scouting assignments that are automatically generated for them, as well as their partners. And so when they're in the pits, they go together as a group. And then after pit scouting is done, after matches start, they also have their match scouting assignments all in one place. They can see the estimated start time of the match, even though that's not always accurate. And they can see when they have a break, etc.
Yeah, those roll off automatically. As the Blue Alliance updates that feed, we take that feed in and we automatically update all the dashboards.
And pit scouting. Yep. As the students go around for the pits, they go and they have icebreakers, they go as a group to help with social anxieties, and they also take a really good robot photo, which is useful in match scouting. So you can see right at the top is the bottom little bit of the robot photo. Those can be very helpful to help the match scouters just see which bot is on the field. Because you can't always see the number, but if you can just identify the shape of the bot, the color, you'll be able to identify it more easily. And down here we have match scouting. You can see they're in groups. So we have autonomous and tele-op, and so once the student's done with the autonomous period, they click the button and it goes down to tele-op. You don't have to do it in your form, but you can. It's customizable. Next, for the scouting lead. How does Scoutradioz make it easier on the scouting lead? We have this very large screen of scary buttons that provides a lot of features, and we'll touch more detail about some of those features.
So the match assignments, we'll talk about the Scouts Go assignments. The application will automatically create a schedule for your scouting schedule. You say, hey, if you want scouters on for 4 matches and off for 4, on for 4, whatever you have, say 12 scouts, then it'll do that up. And the scouting lead can keep track of who's submitting and who still hasn't submitted. The buttons turn gray once they're submitted. You can edit them afterwards. This is also really great for helping, like if somebody hasn't gotten back to the bathroom in time, somebody else can jump in on this dashboard and cover for them. Another student or a parent or a mentor or some such. So I talk about automated schedule with Blue Alliance. FRC events had a couple of issues this year. So we already had screens for entering the data manually because there's a couple of events like all-season events that aren't synced with FMS. So we leverage these pretty heavily. At our first event, I had to type in the match schedule. Hopefully in the future we'll use OCR for that, but I typed it in.
Optical character recognition, for those who don't know.
Yeah, so to basically take a photo of the printed schedule and have that hoovered in. And then, you can keep track of the match results as those come in. So I think they've got those issues worked out, but if it happens again, we have a backup here. As everybody knows, the scouting lead's job is easy, right? They tell the scouts what to do, and then they just all do it. So herding the cats can be challenging. We have a lot of tools to help the scouting lead, help the scouts do a good job. What we're looking at here is the audit report of who's done their matches, who's had them covered, who may have missed something. So you can see like the red ends and such. Okay, those are matches we might want to go back and rescout from video that's later in the evening. There's several other audit pages. We'll touch on those.
So something we always tell our scouts, which is very important, is that bad data is worse than no data. Tell our scouts, hey, if you're not sure about what the robot did, don't submit. We have 3 main points that we follow in order to have good scouting results. 1, make sure the tasks are being done. The previous page can demonstrate that. See the coverage of each scout's assignments. Number 2 is, are they being done professionally? So we don't want people to write, some bad taste jokes or upload a photo that is not appropriate. So we have pages that can audit those comments that people write and also the photos that are uploaded. And lastly, which is kind of the hardest to track, and we'll give some more details, is how do we verify the tasks are being done well and accurately?
Yeah, so what we're looking at here is we call this the Scouter Performance Rating. It's basically OPR, but for scouts. Where OPR takes the 3 robots as if, hey, some unknown per robot adds up to the alliance score. In this case, we take the scouts' reports, we can calculate the number of points off the scouts' reports the robots scored from their data, add them up compared to what that alliance actually scored, and then solve for the unknowns of how much error each scout is introducing. Again, this is not to find the scouts who are doing a bad job and yell at them. This is say, hey, there's a scout who's consistently having issues. Maybe they need some extra attention, they need a buddy, a mentor to sit with them or something. We've had some students with, say, attention deficit issues, that benefited from some extra attention that really brought their performance up. So this has been a great. Now you see some negative numbers. That's just linear algebra being swingy. Generally speaking, these numbers, anything like 2 or below is pretty good. So it's a web app. That means that it doesn't work if there's no signal, right? Before this year, up to 2023, that was true. The app required a connection. We have a competition in Mid-Atlantic called Springside Chestnut Hill. If anybody's been to that, you know that the gym is inside a Faraday cage. There is no signal whatsoever. We knew that in advance. We brought paper, and boy, do I feel for the teams that use paper for scouting, particularly the person who wants to enter into Excel spreadsheets afterwards. So this year, we released for everybody to use a new module.
Voyager. So, Voyager is a progressive web app. Now, there's a lot of different types of progressive web apps. The type that Voyager is one where once they install, they go to voyager.scoutradioz.com and then they install it on their phone. And it downloads all the assets that are required for the app to run. And then when you launch it, when there's no signal, it'll run. And instead of relying on a cell connection every time you submit a scouting report or navigate to a page, it will save everything locally. It'll have a copy of the database on your device, and instead of relying on cloud connectivity to transmit data between scouters and scouting lead, we have QR codes. And unlike most QR codes that just have a link to a resource, these QR codes have all of the data embedded within. So the scouting lead gives the assignments to the scouters, they scan it, and now they have the assignments. Once they're done, the scouters give a QR code to the scouting lead, and then now the scouting lead has the results.
Yeah, so it's not fully offline. The scouting lead still has to scamper off to the cafeteria where they have a Wi-Fi connection, upload the data to the cloud, download the latest reports, and then scamper back. But those would be hopefully future things. But we're going to talk about in generally
how do we do it? So don't worry about all these details, but this is just a little demonstration of how much of the code base Scoutradioz has. Scoutradioz is full stack JavaScript, meaning JavaScript on the front end of the browser client and also the back end. And it uses a NoSQL database called MongoDB. And it's running on Amazon Web Services. And so we can give you, if you're interested, we can give a 6-hour college course on all the gory details, but we only have 45 minutes. So.
Yeah, we are interested in that, though. We'll get to that.
Okay.
I do want to touch on, I mentioned match predictions. So this is some of the mathemacy of the match predictions. But in particular, historically we've used contributed points where we calculate how much a robot scored directly in a match. And that's been highly predictive. In the past, it's been like 80-85% accurate. This year's game is different, obviously. Passing robots, amping robots, doesn't capture that. So other metrics have been more predictive. So one of the future expansions is going to be to allow teams to pick which metric to use for the match prediction, so that you design your form, you design all the calculated metrics, and then either the app can help you decide by doing some machine learning on your data, or you can choose which metric you want to use. But that leads into, the journey continues. I mean, the app is fully functional today, but there's all kinds of features that are being requested. People have ideas. We want to bring in OPR, EPA, and that sort of thing. So
we touch on a lot of the requested features. Now, Scoutradioz is fully featured, but there's a lot of more things we can do. We can fix bugs, we can improve the user experience, we can add some extra features. A big one, for example, is to share data between orgs. I mentioned that the data is siloed, but it would be great to be able to, if you have multiple organizations at the same event, you can pool scouting data, do a majority vote if you have 3 or more. And also sharing with other apps. There's an app called the Purple Warehouse. They're trying to create a standard for interoperability between scouting apps where you can share data. Also a UI editor, instead of having to deal with JSON and opening it in a text editor, that's difficult. Let's have a UI editor. And lots of other stuff, OCR as I mentioned. With Voyager, we'd like to maybe use Bluetooth to connect between phones to share robot photos, that kind of stuff. There's a lot that we can do.
Right, so what's our long-term vision? Because right now, largely it's been a few developers doing this. So the long-term vision is, high-quality scouting by everyone. So our goal is ultimately to make Scoutradioz, it's already open source, make it a fully community-supported platform. And
so how can you contribute? It's open source. We're highly encouraging people to contribute. It's mostly been maintained by 2 people. We've had very important contributions by a limited number of students that have been excellent. And if it continues like this, we'll get all of our features by FIRST's 100th anniversary. So the code is all open source, but we're putting in a lot of effort to make the new developer experience easier, get some tasks that are like easy first issues, that kind of stuff to support new developers.
Yeah, we ultimately want Scoutradioz to be community supported, and also be a great way for people to use it as an educational tool for people to learn about enterprise web development. To learn about how developing skills in a real-world application with thousands of users around the world. So if you're a student or a mentor who's passionate about data and analytics or web development or whatnot, by all means, jump in. We would love to have you help out. And of course, for all those who just need a platform to do the job, hopefully we've covered the key parts. I mean, what's good for drive teaming strategy? How does this make it easy? And how the scouters do their job and enjoy their job, and how the scouter can manage all this. So I think that's basically it. So 2 QR codes. The one on the right is the browse page. So for the teams who are scouting with Scoutradioz on some of the fields this week, you can see them and see their data through that browse. It's going to be a little slow and clunky, but because I haven't optimized it, but it'll do the job. The one on the left will take you to the Learn More page in Scoutradioz. That'll have a link to the form to sign up, a link to our Discord, a link to our wiki, where all kinds of documentation and such and everything. So with that, I guess now we're accepting questions.
We have about 15 minutes. Also, stick around. We have a bunch of iHeart Scoutradioz badge ribbons for you guys once we're done. Not yet.
No. Okay, question.
Yeah, how does your Scouter data, the sort of analytics about the scouters work when you have a fully custom form and maybe you don't have the, exactly representative of what the match score?
Right, so
just has everybody heard the question? If not, we can repeat the question. Okay, so the question was, when the form is completely customizable, how do you kind of match the scouter data with the FIRST data?
Yeah.
So there's one
to get scouter, to get feedback on your scouter.
Right. So we don't get into the details of what FRC kicks back in that data block. Again, we focus on, most teams create a derived attribute called contributed points. So if a robot left the starting zone and scored 3 points in 3 notes in auto, and maybe AMs in auto, and then these things climb track, you can add up exactly how many points they contributed. And so if you add up those 3 values from the 3 robots in an alliance, the scouters think that alliance should have scored X. FRC says they scored Y, and we can basically take that difference and do linear algebra to calculate which scouters are generally more likely to add error. And then we can focus in and help them out.
And it's not completely perfect because, for example, if Scouter A, overshoots by 1 metric and then Scouter B undershoots by the same metric, then the contributed points of the match is the same. But it's still a good metric for just validating that the scouters have been paying attention and doing a pretty good job. Something we'd like to do is, so the blue lines returns just a JSON blob of just a whole score breakdown. And so in the form schema, we might like to include just a way to kind of attach the ID of this one question with the ID of the other thing in the JSON schema, but that's not present.
Yeah, that would be another user-definable thing, more low code or a UI or whatnot. Other questions? Actually, there's a question in the back, right?
I had a question earlier about the blue lines data and the way you're pulling it out. Is it real time or is it how often do you update it?
So we've subscribed to the Blue Alliance fire hose.
Okay.
Basically, every single update Blue Alliance does, we suck it in. So we get every match update, every ranking update, every team update for every event around the world.
Okay.
And then there's also screens, we didn't go into those, but if we miss an update or you just want to, you can't wait, you can sit there and hit the button to just pull the Blue Alliance and pull the data in directly. You also use those screens to do things like, hey, I want to practice scouting. Let's rerun this event from last year, and then act as if we're all on video, like it's happening in real time. It's a great way to train your scouts.
A gray in the middle.
Say, before the whole season, can you create a mock-up data and run different strategies on various features, just come up with different the scenarios just out of the blue and just kind of run it and see what strategies can pan out better than others?
So the question was, before the season, can you create a mock-up of different types of data and try to formulate your strategies based on that? Yeah. So,
So real quick, is that before competition starts?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but after kickoff?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah,
Not
okay.
kickoff, but before the actual...
Right, so, again, there's a lot of preseason events that happen that aren't synced. So often teams may set their event to one of those preseason events and then just put in fake data. So they on video they're scouting or they're just making up stuff. So that's definitely a way you can do that.
additionally, the week 0 event we often use as a really good testing ground, train our scouters, that kind of stuff. So it is real data, but of course it is close to the end. But yeah, and also with the scouting form, you can once you create your scouting form, we have a little test form page where you can train your scouters on that.
So I think there's a question in the back and then a question in the front. Okay. Once you got that question, I'll show the scouting form.
So one of the red shirt actually first. You've been having your hand up for a while.
So with the pick list data, you kind of went through pick list stuff pretty quick. Can you create a customized pick list for your team, or does it simply go off the rankings that the system develops?
Okay, so I did go through that quickly. I'll answer that. So he's asking about the pick list data. So this V column here, there's another screen called Alliance. We should just call it Center Pick List. It's got the totally clear name of Alliance Selection Data. Where is that? Alliance Selection Data. So basically, like if I like 102, these guys are great. We're going to rank them really high, so they're going to show up at the top of that list. So when I sort by this, now 102 is my first pick, because obviously 102 should always be the first pick, right? Yeah, so you set your pick list. One of the requests we've gotten is, hey, can we automatically set that from a metric and then tweak it afterwards? So that would make it like, because otherwise you have to sit here and up and down these things one by one. So that's something that's also something we can help out with, or we'll do it when we get to it.
Next questions? Red shirt in the back.
Will this be available for postseason competitions?
Sure, it's available right now for everything.
Okay.
So yeah, people use it during the off season, they use it in the preseason, etc. So you can sign up today, and we'll get you going.
So we can sign up to do it like we have a fall event that we go to each one of the practice and scout.
Sure, yeah, we've done the same thing with in our area something called Brunswick Eruption that we go to. I think you had a question.
So firstly, just as long as it's available, as long as you can see the event on the Blue Alliance, yes. A lot of off-season events won't actually push their data to, like their FMS won't push their data to First API, which therefore won't be on the Blue Alliance. In that case, you'll have to insert the match schedule by yourself and insert the match result by yourself, but you will be able to do it as long as the event name is in the Blue Alliance. Then we get that event in the database.
I was just going to offer a perspective of somebody who's using the app to answer a couple of questions.
Specifically on the simulating an event that you haven't actually gone to yet, what we ended up doing as our team is we took the Kettering event because it didn't have any uploaded match schedule or uploaded teams. I manually entered all the teams that were going to be at our next event, all of the match schedules as soon as they came out on practice day, and we actually used the event that didn't have any data, put it in our own data, and we did practice scouting with that, and we used the SPR calculations to go and determine what scouts need the most attention to try and help them keep focused, help them point out what to look for. So using simulation event is very useful. It does take a lot of manual entry right now, but it is definitely worth your time.
Thanks for the input.
Blue shirt in the back.
So we might miss the answer to this because we came in a few minutes late, but in the synopsis for the cloud-based experience, scouting opportunities, did you just mean the accessibility of allowing scouters to use a web app, or are you actually providing teachers to take scouting out of the scouting phase?
So this is a platform that any team can sign up for. So actually, Ron, did you get the question?
I didn't get the question.
So I'm going to run you the microphone because I didn't quite do that.
All right. Thank you.
So I saw in the synopsis that you were mentioning scouting automation as a feature of your app. So I was wondering if you have anything that actually takes scouting out of people's scouting experience.
Well, we did have an April 1st release of Scouting by Video, which went over pretty well.
Using ChatGPT and prompt engineering. But
Yes.
That was,
But to be honest, I mean, that's something that I think in 2 or 3 years will be feasible. You know, the AI is just going bonkers these days. But today, the automation is mostly around what the scouting they can do. And make the scouting these job easier for both setting things up and also managing the scouts. I think there's a question here.
So when using Voyager, it's saving all the data locally. Is storage accommodations needed on all the devices in order to verify?
So the question is, when using Voyager, storing the data, when it stores the data locally, are there any kind of storage accommodations? It's using the browser's local DB, and the data.
It's called index DB, and there's no storage limit. We found that Voyager takes, from like 1 to 5 megabytes total, which is very small compared to what it's capable of. So, not quite.
Is there a cost for the web services or any storage space?
So for us, there's a cost. With 200 teams in there now, it actually costs us $7 a month. For everybody else, it's free, completely free. And again, there's no hardware device, there's no other cost like having to set up a server or having to wire something like whatnot. And the question was, is there a cost? And again, there's a cost for us, but for everybody else, it's completely free.
Yeah. And also compared to the cost it takes to run a first team, it's pittance. So
Yeah.
we're more than happy to cover the hosting costs, especially since the setup that we have with serverless works great for a scouting app, where when there's nobody using the app, we don't pay anything. It only is in cost when it's in use, and so it's we're good.
Yeah, Amazon will spin up Lambda functions as needed. So we've had some events where there's people scouting like before all over the world, and we'll get like 40 concurrent hits, and Amazon goes, okay, I'll spin up 40 instances of the application, and then shut them all down when they're not needed. I think a question in the back there.
Yeah, so I have a question. Since it's public, as teams, are they able to see your data, or could you find a way to chat with anyone?
So the question is, since it's public, can other teams see your data? And by design, yes. All the data, except for those free text fields, are totally open. Anybody can come in and look at your data. And it's also, you can export to CSV. If you've got a particular, charting solution, a particular chart you really like and you don't have it yet, you can export it down to CSV, hoover the data in, and do further analytics and design and such.
We also, it was a couple years ago, we decided to hide the text prompts that the students wrote just because we encountered like a bad taste joke. We don't want other students from other teams seeing something badly written. We're considering changing that because we spoke to another team who was using Loveit, and they actually found that it was very helpful to see what other teams' scouters wrote about their bot. And so we might make it like opt-in for teams using the app to allow their scouters' comments to be published.
Okay, so I think orange headband.
So for the Drive Team dashboard, is all the data in that based on whatever data we scout the matches?
Yes, so the question was in the Drive Team dashboard. Right now, all that data is from what the scouts have scouted in matches. We do want to bring in things like OPR and EPA, make those optional to add to the dashboards. Green shirt.
So is there any way for, if you have multiple teams hit scouting the same event, or even matches scouting the same event, to coordinate who's going to scout who between the two teams?
So the question was if you had multiple teams scouting. So today, like scouting, coordinating pit scouting and such. Today, we've done a bunch of collaboration scouting with teams. Right now, it's set up so that you basically just create little temp accounts. Like at Lehigh, we were scouting with 2 other teams, and so we put them in. They were all users. All the rotations got divvied up. All that pit scouting and match scouting. We've talked about making some of the teams we walked around yesterday in the pits. We talked about making an option to create temporary add-ins to your, so one organization can coordinate it, but you don't have to create accounts. If they already got an account in another organization, just use that account. Black shirt.
Does Scoutradioz take previous events in the year in account? Like when you're getting stuff like statistics, will you take the previous events also, or just this event?
So currently it's just this event. Partly because we've seen our experience has been that lots of things change event to event. So we'll leave Statbotics to look at the history and EPA and such, and again maybe bring the EPA in as an optional metric. But just because we've seen a lot of volatility and variability in history, it hasn't really added a lot of value. It might actually cause some confusion. You can export your entire year of data. You can could look and say, our match scouting that you can export the whole year instead of just one event.
There's one exception. The Team Intel page does have a link for Team Intel history, which that second variant of the page does include previous events. But not many folks look at it as far as I'm aware because it's usually more relevant to see how the team is doing at this event.
Thank you.
The security model, getting kids or scouters invited into your team, and then how you do the identification, authentication of those scouters, how's that work?
So right now, future, we're going to move to OAuth. Today, the organization has an org password, and then most of the scouts don't have a password, but the team admins, anybody with like admin access, has a separate password.
So as a quick demonstration, I just hit change organization. Now you can see all the organizations that are using the app. So we'll log into demo data, and I hit logging into Scout. And so here we have the organization password. It's demo 2022.
You can all write that down so people check it out and see things. Don't save that password.
And now we just have the list of all the people. So the names we want to hide behind the password, so web scrapers can't access it. I'll select 8 and O and log in, and I'm in. 8 and O is not assigned, so they didn't actually get signed into the scouting dashboard. But you can go into here, go to scouting. Oh, what's that? Yeah, we can see the dashboard here. The scouting signs, that kind of stuff.
It might be because the event has long since done. This is set to like Pittsburgh Regional for 2019. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. White shirt in the back.
Do you guys kind of bring this in?
So the question was, do we plan to bring this to FTC? We get that a lot, and I think there's no, I don't know of any Blue Alliance style site for FTC. So if we did it for FTC, you'd have to manually enter all the match results and schedule and such. That being said, I don't think there's really no reason why we couldn't use the same concept and schema. Just change things from 3 robots to 2, that kind of thing.
So this would be a great opportunity for community support. If there are some FTC teams, or if you're on both FTC and FRC, we would absolutely love to have Scoutradioz on both platforms. To find any, I think I heard FTC Scout has some good scouting information. So yeah, absolutely possible.
I know you've been waiting, Blue Shirt. This question is the app screen reader compatible? That's a good question.
So the answer, unfortunately, is no. We had to, I was thinking about it, and I was just thinking that the reports pages, I imagine, has a good opportunity, but then as far as I can understand, at least for the scouting side, because the scouters need to be able to see the robot. We can have a discussion about it, but as far as I'm aware, I don't have an understanding that the scouting form could be screen reader, but for reports, yeah, we could, but currently no.
Richard?
For the FTC, it's the Orange Alliance.
Sorry? Oh, the Orange Alliance?
The Orange Alliance.
Okay, so they provide data?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, so just the question, just somebody clarifying that the Orange Alliance sends the same kind of data for FTC as the Blue Alliance. All right, so I think we're one more question. So we've got, for pre-scouting, we didn't talk about it much, but there is super scouting for qualitative scouting, beyond just the quantitative scouting. So you can super scout a team and put notes in about teams ahead of an event. And those super scout notes will show up in reports and such, particularly in the match scouting form. If you want to tell the scouts, hey, when you're scouting for a lot, look for this, look for that kind of thing.
But was your question specifically putting in information on a team independent of an event? So to answer that, not currently. So that super scout notes that we're talking about is per event, and so the data is actually tied to an event. And so you can still see the notes that are written in past events, but yeah, no current note field or anything like that for a team that's detached from the event.
But then now that you mentioned, we could create another level of super scouting that is team-oriented, not event-oriented.
Super duper scouting.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, if there's other questions, just come and ask us, but I think we want to leave a little time before we break up for handing out the ribbons. Otherwise, again, thank you so much for coming out. Great to see everybody. Thank you all.